Wednesday evening. Welcome to yet another exciting, insightful edition of One on One. This is the program in which everything is considered. I'm talking to the Chief Executive Officer of a company that daily makes the headlines, the Namibia Airports Company. That's Mr. Ben Beaver. Very good day to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
So you took over in December, and while many people were going on holiday, but you got into this hot seat. You had sleepless nights in December already?
Indeed. I had sleepless night. I started on the 1st of December. I went through the key documents, the strategic documents of the company, and quickly realized that there are serious issues that need serious attention. That these issues need bold action, and those actions need to be taken very quickly. So already by then, the indications were on the wall that I need to do a bit of work. I need to put up a plan as to how I address these issues, and pretty much by then it was already clear that there is a need for a restructuring process right away at the NEC.
Why the need for restructuring?
Firstly, the need for restructuring was sort of needed because it hinges on the long-term sustainability of the company. If you don't do it now, the company was anyway going to run into problems in terms of financial sustainability. If you don't restructure now, it was very clear that in a few years' time, the company wouldn't be able to operationally function and also wouldn't be able to pay workers. And then that basically means if you don't restructure now, you'll close shop very soon. Firstly, the organizational structure of the company was non-existent. There was no pay structure, there was no performance management system in place. Pay increases were not based on performance. There was no link between performance and a reward. Secondly, the core business of the company has been neglected for over 12 years. Maintenance was not done as it should be. The necessary amounts that are needed for maintenance of airport infrastructure, which is your core business, was not attended to. In the same vein, you didn't have the right skills that gonna execute maintenance of infrastructure. For example, you didn't even have one single engineer in the company. Furthermore, you also had a lot of inequalities in terms of the pay structure within the staff. You'd have one person doing the same job, but there will be a 5 times difference in terms of pay for the same job. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of anomalies within the company that hinges on the long-term sustainability of the company.
And where do we point the fingers? Who do we blame for that particular mess that you found there?
Well, it's not always good to blame people when you come into a setup. That's not the right thing to do. But the fact of the matter is the strategic direction and the longevity of the company is obviously the responsibility of the board of directors as well as the management. So obviously it was very clear that management, there was nobody that is protecting the company. There were people that were protecting the workers, but there were nobody that was protecting the company for the company to be financially sustainable and to be operationally sound.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that when you are saying there was somebody protecting the workers. What do you mean by that? Because one of the things that I have read you talking about during this whole restructuring process is how what you call that the management and the union were signing agreements, secret agreements behind the in a sinister way. That's how you have tried to paint it, in a sinister manner. And the failure was going to be the company, or the loser was going to be the company.
Well, what I've pointed out in the papers is that I think you didn't have, because of the non-concentration on the core business of the company, you didn't have skilled management in place. So you have a situation where you have management that were always put in the corner by the unions.
So but you had a CEO that was skilled in finances, that is now also heading a finance department in another parastatal. What are you talking about?
Well, again, I wouldn't want to put blame on people, but the financial position and the statements of NEC is out there. It's a public company. It's for everybody to go and see what the situation in which the companies find itself. So it's a public secret that the situation in which NEC finds itself was not financially sound. It was not financially sustainable. Now, I'm again not blaming it on the former CEO. All what I'm saying is that, for example, in 2007, you had market-related salary adjustment process that was approved by the board that led to the wage bill of the company doubling in one single year. Now, it's not rocket science. If you are a board of a company or if you are chief executive of the company, to caution against your salary wage bill doubling and constituting around 60% of your income. That is a red flag out there.
But the unions were on the streets. We saw reports. We covered the workers, how they were demonstrating. The management must have been put in a corner. Are you not sympathetic to that?
Oh, well, I'm not sympathetic to that because management is not there to please unions. Management is there to protect the company and to manage a company on sound business principles. There is also a distinction between what is union matters and what is management matters. Some of the issues that unions are concentrating on are not issues that relates to the terms and conditions of the services of workers. It's only when you come to the terms and conditions of the workers that the union come actually in place. So there are management decisions that has to be taken by management. So irrespective of the pressure, if you are there to protect the company, obviously you need to protect the interests of the company and say that this is not acceptable.
Mm-hmm. You are explaining this process. I mean, it started and discussions already started last year, but you are now starting to explain the rationale in 2012, 4 months down the line since your discussion started and your consultation started. And the public really have been fed with so much information already. Why do we have to believe you now that you want to concentrate on your core business? You want to hire those engineers. You want to concentrate on the maintenance of airports. Why do we have to believe you now? You were silent all the time, doing things in your dark corners.
Yes, it's very true, and we take that. The reason why we were silent is obviously the issues relating to restructuring obviously are issues that involves employer and employees. So they are confidentially salary-related issues that the restructuring process involved. So therefore, we took a conscious decision that we won't go on public and talk about this in that much detail. But once the process has been concluded, we'll actually go to the public, since it's a public company, and explain to the public, for example. But during our discussions with the unions, during our discussions with the staff, we made the rationale very clear to everybody. During our discussions with our shareholders, the line ministry, we made it very clear. The rationale was clear to everybody. Staff even said, this is the only way out for us. This is the only savior. If we want to protect jobs in the long term, this is what we need to do.
So it's the same stuff that we are seeing that are threatening you with a particular strike right now, Mr. Beaver?
Obviously. We are saying this is the medicine that we need. Medicines are not, they don't smell good, they don't taste nice, but you need them to heal you in the longer term. The same staff that agreed and signed to the restructuring process, that took the severance packages, that are right back in the jobs, are the very same ones that are taking the company to court. Now that story is not told. The side of the company, what the company has done in the process, what the company has agreed of the workers, what the company has agreed of the union, is not told. For example, there were payments through the MRS, market-related salary process. There were debts that employees, when employees were overpaid, there was an agreement between the company and the staff for staff to pay back that debt. And we have written off all these debts. We have paid them severance packages out. But yet, they're coming back and claiming about zero salaries, etc., etc. Nobody's asking them, what did you do with your severance packages? The restructuring process is nothing new. NHA has done it, Agribank has done it. They in most cases, they have not guaranteed jobs. Something we have done, we have retrenched nobody in this process.
But you have pressured them to take jobs on lower salaries. That's what you have done. As opposed to NHE and Agribank that were probably more transparent about the whole process altogether.
That's not entirely true. In other scenarios, for example, at Agribank, nobody was guaranteed a job back. In our case...
But not a job at a lower salary scale.
Doesn't matter. A job is a job. A job, you got a job. In fact, I need to point out, around 90 of NEC workers got salaries at a higher level. Almost half, that brings you to almost half of the staff of NEC are sitting now with jobs that are paid much more higher than they used to be. There are, in fact, reductions. We are not hiding that. That was the intention of the process. That is not a secret. What we are saying is there are some untold things in this whole process by staff. Staff are not honest. The severance packages, people are not asking, what did you do with that money? You were paid out 400,000. What happened? Why didn't you settle your house? You got a job back. In fact, you were supposed to be retrenched. But the company took a conscious decision to hire you back. Whether it's lower or not, you still have a job.
So how do you explain that zero Namibian dollar payslip, for example, that was widely reported in the media? I mean, when you look at that, nobody has sympathy for you right now in this country, Mr. Biva.
Agree. It was highly sensationalized. It was highly dramatized. But there are two stories to that. There are two instances. There were instances where people were deployed. Those ones didn't show up for work. They were redeployed to other stations. For example, if you're in Windhoek, you were redeployed to Lutritz. Some of them didn't show up for work and they were not paid. Therefore, they got a zero balance. That we understand. And that's clear. If you don't show up for work, you shouldn't be paid. There is case closed. Second scenario is where in the new structure, some of the employees' jobs were not featuring in the new structure. So instead of retrenching them, we said, okay, we'll offer you something in the general category, which will be obviously lower, but it will still be a job. So we can assure you a job. What we are now saying is we are basically looking after those people. It's around 5 to 7, probably it could be to 10. And we are looking at how we can accommodate them through other means. And it's a problem that we are addressing.
But at the same time, you're saying that they should have used their severance packages wisely. So therefore, there is really no incentive or there is really no commitment on your part to help such employees who are in that type of a situation. I mean, if you go on saying on national television they should have paid off their houses with their severance packages.
There is actually a commitment from the company. There are certain categories that I have explained now that can be catered for. We are busy doing a postmortem.
Why didn't you foresee such issues beforehand? Was it perhaps a lack of homework on your part because you hired consultants and one of the consultants we heard was paid exorbitant fees?
No, homework is done, obviously, as I said. Our position was that we should offer them jobs back. We did that. We are now looking into the situation.
Regardless of whether they earn 0 Namibian dollars or 10 Namibian dollars?
Well, what happened to the severance package? Why are they not answering that question? What happened to the severance package? If you had, severance package was meant for fiscal consolidation, for example. So, if you are paid 400,000, you have a house that is outstanding for 100,000, you could have paid off your house.
Those are nice terms, fiscal consolidation. How do you explain yourself to the children of that particular family whose parent brings home a salary of 0 Namibian dollars? Do you have any heart, Mr. Biva?
We did counseling to staff. We said, you'll be paid out of severance packages, you'll come back on a lower salary, use your severance package wisely. Look at your debt situation, try to consolidate your debt, reduce your debt. That's what we counsel staff. Company has taken knocks throughout the years. Company has overpaid people throughout the years. Company also needs to consolidate its position, and the same austerity measures are expected from staff. You have the same situation in Europe where people in Greece now needs to take austerity measures. It's the right thing to do in the long run. It's a short-term
You're talking
pain.
about austerity measures, but when we hear about the cost of the restructuring exercise through the fees that you were paying your consultants, for example, that's nothing. That speaks nothing about austerity measures.
Well, I wouldn't want to go into that detail. I think if you look at the restructuring processes and how much it has cost, how much savings it has brought about to companies.
Can you speak to the issue of you paying an outside consultant to make this process work for you?
Yes, we have recruited a consultant in the process, and we have paid him obviously what other restructuring processes has paid in the market. So what we have paid and what we know compared to what you, I don't know what you know, is within the market, and we've made a comparison of that with
What we
other
know is what is
restructuring.
divulged in the newspapers.
Sure, which is
So what can you tell us about it?
obviously not what is true. What I
So
can
what is the
tell
truth?
you, what I can tell you is that if you look at the restructuring process that took place in Namibia, what we have paid to our consultant is in line with that. That's what I can promise you, and that's what I can commit to.
Here is the Minister of Labour saying that your restructuring process was in clear violation of the Labour Act, and they pointed out certain concerns. They relayed those concerns to your stakeholder minister, for example. When you hear something like that, and you go out putting and paying excessive amounts in newspapers explaining to us that your process was above board, when the Minister of Labour is an authority in the Labour Act, isn't he?
Well, I cannot vouch for that, whether it's authority or not. All I can say is that we have on paper put how we have complied with the law. We have coded different sections of the Labour Act. Section 34, in which we have done the restructuring process. Section 64, on which we have decided on which is the recognized union with the exclusive bargaining power. Section 68 that gives us the power to extend the agreement if the parties agree to that extent. And all this, we have checked it with the Labour Commissioner. We have in writing advice from the Labour Commissioner that what we have done is the right thing. So from that perspective, we are saying that we have complied with the law.
So what the Minister of Labour is talking is just hogwash.
I wouldn't want to have a debate on that. I think the case is for sub judice next week, and it will be put to test as to whether our process was legal or not. I think all we can say is that we are a responsible stakeholder, and we have complied with all aspects of the labour law.
Let's expand more on your relationship with NAPU, because that's one of the central issues that workers are saying. The manner in which you conducted this whole process was just dubious. I mean, last year already, towards the middle of last year, towards the end of the year, the workers were not happy with that particular union. In November, you tell NAPU that they must give you, they must tell you whether they still meet that threshold of 50% plus one. And that notice was already given in November. But in the meantime, you continue to still engage with this particular union that you knew very well could not have met that particular threshold. In the back of your mind, you knew that.
Again, I think let's put things in perspective. First of all, we are willing to negotiate with any union, whether it's NAPU or NATO. And that's not our choice. It's actually the employee's choice. They can associate with any union. It's true, November, we gave NAPU a notice, and this is a 3 months notice that was going to expire on 30th of March, right? So we told them, you don't have 50 plus 1 representation anymore, so you should get your house in order, and by end of March, we will start the process of engaging you in Natal to prove on the representation, and we'll start with the process of getting the right person that has got representation at NSG. But what we shouldn't forget is that our recognition agreement has nothing to do with the notice. The recognition agreement only expires when the notice has expired and when the process is to recruit a new representation or a union has been completed. So in a simple language, what we are saying is the restructuring process, the negotiations to that, was all completed within the notice period, in which NAPU was the legitimate recognized union at NSC.
So in God's hand, this actually played in your favor, right?
We have
because had you had Natal negotiating on behalf of the workers, the outcome would have been pretty much different.
I don't think so, and I'm not at liberty to. I think it doesn't really matter to me. As I said, we can negotiate with any union. We have no qualms with Natal. We have no qualms with NAPU. All what we are saying is we need to follow the law. In terms of the law, we have a recognition agreement of NAPU, and we were forced and obliged by law to negotiate with them. If we say that that agreement has expired, we're actually not obliged by law to negotiate with any. So we would have then negotiated with our top stewards, or with a committee of workers, etc., etc. So all these agreements, all these negotiations took place in good faith. Company made concessions, the company wrote off certain things, the company commit not to retrench anything. So the negotiations were like negotiations of any other union.
This medicine that you have prescribed to the NAC, I mean, any parastatal that goes through maybe similar pains that NAC has gone through, maybe a high wage bill, 60-70%. Even government itself that has pretty much also a similar concern with its wage bill, can just undertake that particular exercise. That sets a bad precedent, doesn't it?
My argument is, why is it a bad precedent? The precedent prescribes that you should pay people where the market is. Is that bad? Private sector would never pay above the market. Why is that a bad precedent? It's not a bad precedent. You need financial reform in parastatals. It needed. You know, why is it a bad precedent? Do you want to wait until the parastatal closes down? Do you want to wait until government actually blaze this out all the time? We don't think so. I think we need to put parastatals on a sustainability path where they are sustainable in their operations so that they can focus on the core business. Because that's a message. Let's concentrate on airport operations and management. We are not cleaning company. There is no need to pay cleaners above the market at NSC because they are not in the core business. Firefighters is a statutory position. It's critical, it's important, but it's not core. So therefore, why do you have to pay a firefighter 6 times the salary of a police officer? In terms of skills, it's not a skilled job. You can pick up anybody from the street and train him as a firefighter and have him at NSC as a firefighter. We have an unemployment rate of almost 50%. That means more than 1 million people are out there, Namibians, looking for a job. And here, you are employing one person, while you would have employed 5 people if you had paid on the market. So if parastatals follow that precedent and follow that example that NSC has done to pay people on the market, why is that a wrong precedent?
Would the CEO also be willing to take a pay cut when the business is not performing?
CEOs are already, there is a framework on which they are paid. CEOs' pays are in fact determined by the State-Owned Enterprises Council.
Would you be willing, once the business, now that you have this restructuring process underway, you have done it, now that you're promising us all these things to return NAC back to sustainability, as a long-term sustainability, would you promise that right now you will be making those profits, and if you are not, you will take a pay cut?
Definitely. Maybe let me tell you this. I've actually taken a pay cut by coming to NSE because I came from the central bank. I'm a trained financial expert, economist, trained in London, trained in Europe. I took my stable job, I left my stable job to come and join NSC because I believed there is a problem that needs to be solved. I came on the same terms to NSC. I took a pay cut.
So what are the names that...
I took a career risk.
What are the names that you've been given through this process? I'm sure that there are some names that are sticking. And probably you are spending sleepless nights over this issue.
Well, there are some names. There are some names by our famous politicians that I've been called. Some called me a benevolent dictator. That means it's a compassionate dictator, somebody that gives money and then dictates people. Some people have called me a cold-blooded dictator, but which is fine.
You're willing to take all these names for the sake
I'm
of
willing
the company.
to take all these names. I'm doing this for our country. At the end of the day, the company needs protection. Government needs protection. Government is the shareholder.
All right, let's leave it there, Mr. Biva. Thank you so much for talking to you. I'm sure next time we can expand on more on the strategy to return NAC to profitability. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Chief Executive Officer of the Namibia Airports Company, Ben Biva there. Join us again next time. This is a show in which all things are considered. From Mika and the team, bye-bye.